Your next promotion is just the beginning, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 156. Today's episode is part 2 of my 5-part whole self series that I'm bringing to you at the end of 2022 so that we can really think about how not only to become and step into more of our corporate badass self next year, but really how do we challenge ourselves to be that badass in all the areas of our lives. So in this series, I will be bringing to you episodes on motivation and well-being, managing your finances, marriage and relationships, how to be a balanced working mom. In today's episode with my dear friend and colleague, Kathryn Morrison, on creating your own unique visual brand. Kathryn is a brand expert and all around amazing, inspirational woman. And you get that from her just simply from looking at her visual brand and how she shows up in the world. So in the episode today, you're going to learn all about how to create that for your own unique leadership style using your core values so that you can start to show up as the leader and the way that you personally want to be seen. Let's get started. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I'm your host, Stacy Mayer, and I am very excited about this series that I'm bringing into you at the end of the year to really celebrate all the aspects of you as a powerful woman and bringing in special guests that I actually didn't even really make the connection to. I don't know why, but that's just the beauty of rebranding and getting more connected with yourself. Is I really started thinking about what are the different aspects of our lives as women that we can elevate besides just being that badass at work. We have to be a badass at home. We have to be a badass in our marriage. And I'm starting to say have to, but in reality, we get to, right? And when we start to blossom and open up those parts of ourselves, then just like literally anything is possible, both in our lives and in our careers. And I'm so excited. And the really fun part about this is I didn't have to go very far to find incredible women to go on this podcast at the end of the year, because these are the women that I surround myself with. And these are my peers. These are my colleagues. These are the badass women that I'm following on Instagram, the people I'm putting into my brain on the daily, the people I've hired, the people who've coached me. And I'm just so excited to share all of these people that I genuinely love. And that makes me think that you'll probably genuinely love them as well. So today I'm bringing in Kathryn Morrison straight up from Austin, Texas, and I'm going to have her introduce herself. But really just the short and long of it is I just absolutely adore Kathryn. We were catching up today after we did a group together as students, as peers, probably about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But you know, when you meet that person, and it's really special to have that friendship where you can go 3 years and not really talk to them directly, but then you get back in the conversation again. And it's like you never left. So that's who Kathryn is to me. And I'm so excited to have her on here. Hi, Kathryn.
Hello, corporate badasses. I feel like I'm among you. One of the things I talk to my audience about is like, we're zebras, right? We're like a little bit wild. We're a little bit badass. And the topic of branding is perfect. I'm the queen of the rebranding.
Ooh,
I run an entire program
are.
on branding, right? And
oh my gosh.
I think it's really fun because there's who we've been taught to be, and then there's who we see ourselves stepping into in the future. And I'm sure that's what Stacy is helping you all unpack every single week. And so we're going to dive in today. Like, what does that actually look like? There's the visual aesthetics piece, but then there's also just like, what are your values and what do you want to be known for? Like if you
Oh
think
my
about a
goodness.
brand, right? Like Disney is known for something and HBO is known for something. And like they've done that very specifically through their branding. And when you're able to think about bringing that into your corporate career, like, yes, that could be in your company. That could also just be you creating a personal brand on LinkedIn and starting to go to different like conferences as a speaker and
Yep.
establishing
Oh,
yourself
this
there.
is so good. Kathryn, before we get into everything, because I'm already getting really excited and have lots of questions for you, but let's can you formally introduce yourself formally, quote unquote?
Yeah. So I'm Kathryn Morrison and I'm from Austin, Texas. Stacy and I were in a mastermind together like 3 years ago. At the time, I was coaching the employee to entrepreneur transition. And just this year, I blew up my entire $500,000 business and went all in on spiritual entrepreneurship. So at this point, that is my starting program is branding. I believe the first step of anything is figuring out who am I? What do I stand for in the world? And taking that mantle of leadership and then figuring out how you wrap, position, and package all of that up and then send it into the marketplace. So I coach entrepreneurs, but everything that I teach can very easily be applied to the corporate badasses that are listening. And then I have a higher level mastermind for people who are scaling into multiple 6 and 7 figures.
Oh, I love it. Just to give you some intel onto what I teach my corporate badasses is I think the second module in executive ahead of time is if we're going to start to transition from being known as that subject matter expert, which is that person who waits to be told what to do, and that person who really just identifies as all the things we did before, right? Which is what you're saying. And then we have to figure out what our leadership style is, who we are as a leader, because that dreaded word imposter syndrome, which I don't even really believe in, I think what's happening is we don't know what else we're going to do. We don't know what we're going to replace our expertise with when we start to transition into our leadership style. It's like, what is that? And so there's so many ways to define that so beautifully as a leader. And I'm this whole idea of leadership brand and figuring that out. And then I'm very excited. My brain's exploding. I'm looking at Kathryn and this absolutely beautiful background that she has that I know there's a whole story that goes along with that because she shares everything on Instagram. You have to follow her. And when I look at that, how many of you brought your work, like when you transitioned to work from home or even created your home office, you just sort of created it as your office space, like the same as you had at work, right? So this whole idea of transitioning from who you were into the person that you actually really closer to who you are.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot for us.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start with your secrets to success, Kathryn.
Okay. I mean, it's just going to come back to brand again. I think of branding as it's like the core essence of something, right? And the more that you can sort of continue to deepen in and ask, like, what are my gifts? What is my core essence? Like, and how do I package and wrap that up for the world? I think every individual has that. I even like to think I was recently reading The Ride of a Lifetime, the Bob Iger book. He was the CEO of Disney. And he talked about when they did the Pixar deal, the biggest thing for Steve Jobs was like, we can't lose like the soul of Pixar, right? So even companies have souls, right? So I think it's like, that was the biggest thing for them was like, we have to, otherwise it's like, you'll buy Pixar and then all the stuff that made it magical will disappear, right? If you sort of take that apart. And so for me, it comes down to, I would call it the soul, right? And I think it is like, what is someone's essence? And then how do you want to package that up? And the answer for me every single time when I'm like, what's the right business strategy? What's the right thing to do? It's always just like, what's the right like thing for me? What's the most magical way that I could possibly do this? And probably for some of your people, it'll be like speaking on stages. And for other people, it will be maybe building some sort of content platform on a LinkedIn or something, right? And it's always going to be deepening into who am I and what are my unique gifts?
Yeah. And, I'm looking at you and I know a lot about your tech background living in San Francisco and Austin and your different worlds that you created. And the way that you're talking right now, it seems like you were a chief marketing officer. And I know that actually wasn't the case. So can you tell us a little bit about, what you were doing in the corporate world and then how in the world did you get to soul branding? I'm like, I know that's probably complicated.
How much time do you have? I mean, I'll try to keep it brief, but I wasn't marketing, it was business development, but I was always working very closely with the marketing teams. So I worked at the San Francisco Chronicle selling ad spaces. So I started there, then transitioned because I was out in San Francisco into the tech space. I worked in ad tech and mobile ad tech for a number of years. Then I moved down to Austin and I started selling like these big multi-million-dollar connected device deals to like, Hunter Douglas, like the connected shades, or Disney connected toys. Like those were the types of clients that I was working with. So it was very high level clients thinking about how do you use technology and where technology is going to sort of leapfrog your company into the next generation of where, society's kind of headed. So I think I've always loved innovation and being like, where are we going? I think that's why I love tech so much. My husband still works in tech and I love, like, a lot of our friends still work in tech. So those are fun conversations to have. And then there was just a point where I realized, coming back to brand, I was like, wait, what are my gifts? I was great at like unpacking client. I could always track in a sales cycle what was happening with clients, but that wasn't the whole enchilada for me. And it was like, what is missing? What do I want to do? And when I found coaching, that really clicked. It was like, this is the thing, And once I started that, I've also gone through a very big spiritual awakening. I think when Stacy knew me 3 years ago, I was an atheist. And at this point, I've had just a handful of things that have been like inexplicable spiritual experiences. And just this past year, I realized like that was the track that I was feeling really called to go down. So it's like, talk about pivots, right? Mm-hmm. Pivoted from tech into like mindset coaching and the business side of things. And then I pivoted again this year as I saw that I'm like at the core of the soul. I'm like, that's where I like to play. And so that is really the core of the work that I'm doing now.
So what are some of the first ways that we can enter into this branding work and what you teach? Like what are some questions we can ask ourselves, or where do we start?
It's a simple, and I don't want the simplicity of it to be lost. It's such a simple question. And I feel like it's asked all the time, but what are your values? I think that's always a really good entry point of like, what are the things that matter to you? And you have to caveat it, and nobody taught you to value them. Because there's some things that when people unpack it, it's like, oh, well, like, but my parents taught me, or, I grew up in the Midwest and this is a value of the Midwest. And it might be that it was taught to you and you agree with it, right? But I think sometimes we have to look at like, what are the things that really matter to me? And I can't explain why. It's just something that's always mattered to me. And like, for me, one of the examples that I really struggled with was I value beauty like tremendously. Like visual aesthetics have always just really appealed to me. And then going into the corporate world and like, it was always just like, that's silly. It doesn't matter. Like that was sort of like the brainwashing that I had started to get in my mind, right? Like was what I cared about didn't matter. And then when I started asking, like, what are my values and what are the things that really matter to me? I'm like, I remember spending time at my wedding, like, what weight of the paper? And is it linen or what else? And when I started to track over time, like, what were the things I was really good at? And then I allowed myself to own beauty as a value. I was like, oh, wait, I'm here to help people create visual brands. And visual brands matter because they stop the scroll. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And so it was just interesting because like I'd worked in business development for how many years and had never thought, like, I always sort of downplayed my gift of beauty and bringing visual aesthetics in. And now I'm like, I can't tell you how many of my clients talk about like the clothing that they wear to a networking event or the Zoom background. And it's not to make an impression, right? It's not to like manipulate or try to figure out how do I get someone to look at me? It's like, how do I communicate in the things that I'm like either wearing or the things that I'm showing up on, like when I'm coming onto a Zoom meeting, that like you could look at me and you know exactly who I am.
Yeah. I love that. When you said that about your brand now, about beauty and the way you incorporate it, if you shared that with me as your leadership style or who you were, I would be like, yeah, let's bring her on our team, right? It's just so clear. And I think a lot of us, first of all, don't take the time to really connect with what our values are. And then it's okay, well, then what do I do with that? And so the first thing that kind of came to mind is just in a generic way for ambitious women is the conflicting values of, say, empathy, compassion, or family. So when you're at work, you feel like that empathy and compassion, right? When you have a crappy boss, it's just getting squashed on the daily. And so I think that what you're talking about is a really internal approach to brand. And then we get the opportunity to express it at chosen moments, but it's not in conflict with other people because it's us. It is who we are.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because that might be this, if this is a rabbit hole, you can stop me at any point, but you get to decide like how much of you wants to be expressed. And then you might find it's like, oh, like who I authentically am and my values are just in conflict with this company.
Right.
Right. And then that's just a decision that you have to make. I was just thinking about this as like, because I'm in the entrepreneur world, but when you asked, I just started thinking a lot because I have friends who are employees at this point, but they've gone and they've created like very strong personal brands. I have a girlfriend, she's in the tech space, she's in VR and she speaks on stages. She just has her own brand. And she's created a brand that's strong enough now that she's constantly like, she has the pick of the litter of where she goes into companies, like who she's willing to work for or not work for, because she decided I'm going to take all of me. And for her, that was like, she has a very strong opinions about women and leadership, especially in things like VR, like they're not very well represented. Right. And she was like, this matters to me and this matters to me and this matters to me. And I'm going to show up how I want to show up. And when she decided to like, let all of that out, I think she got fired. I'm pretty sure she ended up like she was not a fit for that company. And then she was like, and that's fine because like, I'm going to make a platform for myself that's bigger than any company. And at this point, like constantly, like companies are reaching out to her because she's the asset now, right? Like they want her as the person who can come and like, it's like, oh, we've got Trisha. It's almost like a thing for the company because she's well known enough in the space.
Yeah. And for the women that I've worked with who successfully transitioned into creating a leadership brand internally, what they would do is they would do certain things that were like, they were just so smart about it. Right. And I think what's happening is that we feel like our values are getting squashed and then we lose our brain. And so we just sort of like, we get complacent. We sort of feel like, oh, well, I'm stuck here. This is terrible. Or, I'm going to blow everything up and I'm just going to speak my mind and I'm going to say all the things. And that can work great. Like that's fine. And sometimes we do have to do that. But for some of the women, we have unfolded it has been like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast over here. I'm not going to be talking directly about what I'm working on, but I'm going to be talking about the things that matter to me. I'm going to bring in other leaders in the space that matter to me and start to connect with them. And then her CEO started to get on board. He was like, wait, what's going on? People are talking about you, right? And so it's like, it's a transition sometimes as well, but it required that willingness for her to say, you know what, there is something else that I want to do in this world. There is something else that I want to bring to the conversation, and just to find a way to be able to do that worked for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I love that you're saying she like started a podcast. There's no right or wrong. I think there could be like, oh, I'm 100% congruent with this company and all of me shows up and like, that's good. Or it's like, oh, and like, I love this and this of my current company, but this part of me isn't getting like, it's an itch I want to scratch. So I'm going to go over here and create my own platform. And there's a million different ways and there's no right or wrong.
So do you have any practical tips from an aesthetic standpoint on how to work with our energetics in our office spaces at home. I talked about that at the beginning. And I think so many of us just tried to recreate our home office. And even if we've returned to the office, we all have home offices now. We all have at least a space that we work from that is dedicated to our work. And I think we just kind of forget about it and we don't even plan for it. We just put the blurred background on Zoom and move on.
Yeah. You want to think about that? We could talk about this for a long time. And I think we're about to. So one of the people that I got to know that really turned me onto this, so I have to give her credit. I have a very good friend. Her name is Olga Naiman, and she's like an OG in the New York interior design, she's coming out with a book next year from the same publishers that did Martha Stewart. She was the editor-in-chief at, I think, House Beautiful and Domino Magazine. So she comes from the design world. And then she came into more spirituality and she was like, how do I help people bring in the future self through the office space? And so it's always looking at okay, so is this space? She came in and did consults. There were so many people in my program that just had literally the same office chair, from their company, just brought it in. And if that feels good for you,
I'm asking for myself right now, by the way, because I have the same office chair, right?
Right. And so that's not necessarily good or bad. You just want to ask, how does this make me feel? Do I want to have this chair here? And I think oftentimes for my clients, it's almost become a symbolic thing to let go of the corporate office chair and then to bring in something that's much more representative of the company they're creating. But for people who are in a company, you have to think about if you've gone home, how do you create something that is extremely representative of you, but still in line? It's not too, it still works with getting onto client calls. It still works with whatever the company is. The biggest thing is just intentionality. I think so many people there's just a lack of intention and consciousness. Versus, I love my husband sometimes takes meetings from my office. If you could see, I don't know if you post the video anywhere, but it's rainbow bright behind me because that's my energy. I actually had an energy artist in Austin paint this painting for me. But you could think about what are things that, going back, what are my values? What are things that matter to me? I have a client she actually lives in Austin now, but she's from New York. She's Puerto Rican. There's a lot of things culturally that were really important to her there. So she made an entire background of her, pictures of her family, but done beautifully, the way that they were matted and hung, it was sort of this homage to her Puerto Rican culture, to her family. And that's what sits behind her every single day and is over her shoulder. And that matters to her. That was something that was really intentional. It was this is, and it's a conversation piece now, right? She gets on and clients are like, who's that? And she's like, this is my aunt. Let me tell you about my aunt. Let me tell you these stories that are important to me. There's other things you can work with making things are there colors that feel really good to you? Right. So some people you can close your eyes and bathe yourself in a color and just notice in your body what feels really good. So it's the simplest way to do it. And for some people, a cool toned blue might feel really good. And then a warm toned blue might feel not great. Right. So you can just start to do that or just ask yourself, where do I love to go? You could also look in your closet. Oftentimes people are they're not even conscious of it, but they are clocking what colors feel good or look good on them. So you could look into your closet and say, is there a color that I'm pulling a lot from here? And bring that into your office space. So it could be anything from the visuals of the colors of it to, is there something that brings a lot of symbolism to where I'm sitting and what I want to bring forward? I don't know, maybe if you decide you're a woman leader who stands for something really important, are there icons over time that you could have framed?
Oh, yeah.
Behind you, right?
Wow.
So it's just a matter of, there's no formula to it, but it's just really sitting down and being what do I stand for? What do I represent? What makes me feel good? What is sort of indicative of my energy and my values? And then making your decisions from there.
As I was listening to you speak, I was you doing these things makes your life easier.
Yeah.
Because we are always trying to psych ourselves up, every single meeting, every single negotiation, every conversation that we have, right? Every time we go into work, we're trying to be the corporate badass. And what you're suggesting is that we create the environment. And now maybe we could go into a little bit of the spirituality of it. It works for us, right? It actually uplifts us.
You're feeding yourself the energy like the whole time. And so if you think about going back to the example of like, if there's it's a platform that you're representing, are there things that's symbolic that sit behind you? Then you get onto a meeting to talk about it, you're going to see yourself in the Zoom meeting too, right? So what you see is yourself, and then behind you is all of these things that are like powerfully representative of the leadership that you're building and standing for. And that's like, that's your team, right? It's right behind you.
Oh my gosh. It's like, do this work to set yourself up for success. Like, it's just so important. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one, it helps you to feel good. It helps you to feel however you want to feel. Do you want to feel powerful? Do you want to feel more feminine? Do you want to feel whatever the thing is? And then how can you encode that in your space? But then you also have to think everything that's behind you is always talking to the people who are on the meeting with you. Yeah. Right. So if you just if you've got like a broken, I get on a Zoom meeting sometimes, I'm like, what is happening? There's like a broken, shelf, right? There were just like weird things on shelves. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, and that's basically how you're presenting yourself to the world.
Right. So then we blur it out. Right. Because we're like, okay, the broken shelf. But then the funny thing is we know the broken shelf is there. Yes. Right. But so we also know when we've created beauty and a space that feels very connected to us and powerfully. One of the concepts that I teach is authentic power, right? And you, Kathryn, just embody that to a T, right? Where you seem so yourself and in that so incredibly powerful. And actually, that actually segues into what I wanted to talk about, which is your family and some of the systems and processes that you have put into place to be this amazing mother, which I would love to hear from that. And then also this amazing businesswoman at the same time. And I think that for a lot of women, that's in conflict, that we can't have both. And you just do it so incredibly beautifully.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know if this is a leading question, but I've just delegated out everything I don't love.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Yeah, that's the leading part of it. I think it's great. I love what you do.
Ruthlessly delegated out anything that I don't love. And so especially as it's interesting, like your people might have a sense of like, as they've built a team, they've had to learn to delegate things that maybe they used to do themselves, but now that's not the highest, best use of their time. Right. So like that part of it, when I started doing that in my business, as my business was growing and growing, I had to get over that. Like, oh no, I can do it better. Or no, like it's fine. I'll just keep doing it, like that part of it. And it was so uncomfortable. But then I started hiring a team. I started bringing on employees. And then I started looking at, why am I still doing the laundry? Like, why is this the highest, best use of my time? Do I love this? And then just making, like, it was so powerful for me one day to like make just the mental calculation of how much would it cost me to just have someone come in and help me with these things. And last year, I just asked myself, I made a whole list of like, what do I love at home? Like, what do I love to do at home? And what do I not love to do? And then how do I delegate the same way I've ruthlessly delegated myself out of anything in my business that's not my zone of genius? How can I do that with my home? Because your energy is your energy is your energy, right? So if you're like an SVP at a company, but then you're like chasing around your 2-year-old eating mac and cheese over the trash can, you've got to think about that. If you're running yourself ragged at home, that's still the person who's coming into the office, right? And I see that so often too with like the people that I coach in their business, right? They don't have things set up for themselves, systems at home to make themselves show up well-rested and powerful in their business. And I think the same thing would just be said of the company. But then, so here's the thing. It's like the one thing is, okay, how do yes. Okay. So there's the math of it. I could pay someone to do the laundry. At this point, I don't even cook dinner Monday through Thursday. Like we have a house manager. And the crazy thing is, it's not that expensive. Like people are always like, they're so confused. When I decided to do this, all of my friends were laughing at me. They like thought it was hilarious. I was like, no, I'm going to find this person. I didn't know that this role existed. So I made a job description. I made the list of all the things I didn't want to do. And I made an amazing job description. And I was like, there's someone who this is their dream job. They want to garden. They want to cook meals. They want to just like make my house beautiful. And so I wrote out a whole job description. And I think I wrote like, family seeks like White House chief of staff meets Mary Poppins, right? Like that was what I was looking for. I wanted someone who had like the domestic Mary Poppins codes. And I also wanted someone who like had their stuff together because I have 3 kids. There's a lot of schedules for anyone listening. If you have many children, it gets busy. And so I had to believe that there was someone out there in the world that wanted to do that job. And I ended up finding her. It was an accident. I went out one day because I wasn't getting the people I wanted online. So I was like, it's a local job. I'm just going to go and I'm going to look and I'm going to put up flyers in places around my neighborhood in Austin where this person might be. And I accidentally stole the manager of one of the stores. Well, for her, it was like she'd been working at the store for like 5 years. She was a retail manager. She was very good at like managing employees, getting all the stuff done around the store. And it turns out retail doesn't pay that well. So I'm like, I can pay you more to come to my house. She loves it. She loves cooking. She loves like making the house look beautiful. And so it's just like, it really took me work to believe that someone else wanted to do that. And then I also had to look at all of my belief systems around like, are you really going to do that? That's kind of ridiculous. And your mom, but you don't cook the dinners, right? Like there was all of that conditioning that I had to just track. Like, why? Because I am the mom, should I be the one cooking the dinners? Like just all of these things that we've been taught as women. Yes. You coach all women. Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we can dive into the women thing here, right? So it's just like, why is that the case? All of the things that have been imprinted on us. And for me, I had a mom who was a stay-at-home mom. So I had all of that sort of coming down to me of like, this is what the woman does. And we could talk about unpaid labor and we could talk about all of the things that like for so many women who are tracking really high up in either their business or their corporate career. And yet still we're putting ourselves on the hook for all of these other things at home. And so like, I got rid of all of the tasks that weren't the highest, best use of my time. And now I get to like, just play with my kids.
Yeah.
Right. Because otherwise I would be getting done work and then I'd be doing bath time. Well, I like bath time, but we'd be like, I'd be seriously cooking and just washing the dishes. It's a long time.
Right. I don't play games with my kids because I'm cooking and washing the dishes. Right.
You should hire that out.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love it. And also what I'm hearing from a delegation perspective, where you started this conversation, you really have to listen to what Kathryn delegated. She delegated from her energy and from her highest desire. So she actually said that she went and she did not hire out, go put flyers on these stores, right? She went physically to the store. So you could say, oh, okay, that's not something that I should be doing as a SVP or whatever, right? But no, she's like, because from an energetic perspective, I need to physically be there because you would not have found this woman if you hired that out, right?
Right. Yeah, it was, I had the idea. It was like an intuitive download. It was like print out flyers. I marketed the crap out of this. I had a QR code that went to like a really nice, so it was like the way that I had made it. It was like the same way I market for clients, right? I was like, I'm marketing to get the best person. And I spent 5 hours on a Friday and my brain's like, seriously, you run a $500,000 company. And you're spending 5 hours on a Friday driving around. And I remember that day, it was like, I felt it. I was like, this person has just been created. Like they've just been from the work that I just did, they're coming. And it took like 2 weeks for her to apply, but I just knew that it had happened. So I had to get over that. But that was my ego, right? My ego was like, this is stupid. You shouldn't have to do this. But I was like, but I want better candidates and I'm not getting them. I'm not getting them through like the standard tools that I have online. And I just got this great idea. And I'm just going to like, the worst that happens is I made it very playful. People that follow me on my Instagram stories were like, what is Kathryn doing? I was just like, we're at the juice bar now. I just tracked the whole thing. I made it like a really playful experiment. And I decided I was going to take responsibility for that. We created it. And now I don't have to do any of that.
Yeah. And I think that your leadership brand is the same way. Like it has to be this commitment to that, but then also this creative experiment, right? We're just playing with it. I loved how you said, if you have a favorite color that you see in your closet, in your wardrobe, just see, how can I bring that into my office space? How can I bring that into my conversations or into my room or a picture of somebody. And if at first it's one that you stare out across the room, not behind you, like anything, right? To uplift your energy and to sort of feel that connection. I love that so much. It feels so right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for just like, how do you project your energy into the world? How do you protect your energy by delegating things out? Like who you are matters and what you're doing in the world matters. And so how do you optimize what you're doing? And so if what your favorite things to do are is like, you love certain things at work. And then when you get home, you love to like color with your kid. How can you make sure that like you have time to color with your kid?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So I have a question for you. Why do you personally feel called to have a seat at the table? Like you are an icon, like why do you feel driven to do the work that you do as a woman in leadership?
It's interesting because I almost feel like this is where we'll get into a little bit of the woo, but like, it doesn't feel like an I thing. It just feels like there's this thing that really wants to like, I just feel compelled. I could say that me, the human Kathryn, decided to like go live in the woods, but there would be this other part of me that was like always driven towards there's this thing that matters. And I believe that's purpose. I think that all of us have something that we feel really just, it comes from inside of us and we feel very driven to do. So it's interesting. I think one of the first spiritual experiences I had was like, I was saying like, I really wanted to help people like live their purpose. And I had an experience where it was like, no, you're not doing that. Like you haven't even figured out who you are. So like, you've got to do that first. And I feel like that has been the work that I've done. And now I'm just like, oh, now that I've sort of cracked the code on that, like I'm a little bit crazy about let's help all the people just do this, because so many of us are just like living the conditioning of like, this is what women are supposed to do. This is what the company said you should do. This is, and it's like, what? Like, let's figure out who we are, what our leadership is, and make sure that we find an environment that's congruent with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Any final words of advice as we wrap up for a woman who's trying to get ahead in her career, trying to figure all these things out? What would be your final words of wisdom for her?
Well, we could talk about the word trying.
There you go.
Right. She's doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And there's
I love that.
a little
Thank
bit
you.
of like, really just tapping into going back to like, what is that thing that you just feel called to do that seems to just like really matter to you? Like maybe it's more advocacy for women in the workplace. Maybe there's some DEI stuff. Like there's something that just seems to really matter to you. And you have to tether to that more than you tether to like that little scared part of you that's like, who am I to do this? I think of like the who am I to do this is just like something we've been taught. That's not actually who we are. One of the biggest shifts I had is like, whenever I get the who am I to do this, I realize that I'm just bumping up against like a belief that I've been taught that isn't mine. Right. And I'm like, oh, we're going to blast past this who am I to. We're going to own the reason I am the person to do this is because like, there's this thing inside of me that just seems to matter. These are my values. This is my mission. This is like what I really care about. And that's how I know that I'm here to do it. And anything else is just like beliefs that need to sort of be unwound one by one by one. And the more that we unwind the who am I to, we become the person I am the person to.
The first thing that when I said a woman who's trying to get ahead and you said, let's look at the word trying. I love that because the last chapter of my book is failing ahead of time. And it's just all those little words, right? I hope it works out. I'm trying. And I think what you just described is this, you're already doing it. So can you just kind of pull all that together for me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say hope is not a strategy. I do think for some people, it's a helpful place to get to. Like if we were to talk about an emotional scale, hope is better than despair. So that's good, right? To be in like, I hope. But if you think about the energy of hope, hope is passive, right? Like, oh, I hope it works out. It's just sort of like, where are you and where is your free will in that? Like, I hope it works out. It's telling, right? Versus like when you believe that you're a powerful creator, then it's like, oh, like I know it will. And here's how I know it will. I might not know the timeline exactly. I think that's helpful. Sometimes people freak out a lot about like the timeline. If it's like, oh, I want a promotion in the next like 2 months or something, right? It's like, okay, well, how about if it's just like, I know I will get promoted or I know I will get the next role. And then like you start to look at, and then what are all the things that you're like not quite sure about? And hope is, I think it's a useful place. If it's as far as you can get in your belief, hope is useful as a stepping stone. But if you stay in hope, you stay passive. So I think once you sort of pass through hope, you get to belief, right? And then once you get past belief, it's knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're
so,
anything but passive today.
Yeah. And so like, let's not be passive, and it's okay. Like to have grace and compassion if you're in the place where it just feels like the kind of thing like you're hoping for, but to just really then get to the point of like, oh, this is a stepping stone towards me owning my leadership. I'm not going to stay in hope.
Yeah.
Because hope is not a strategy.
Yeah. So good. So good. So how can people find you, learn more from you, follow you, all the things?
People can find me. I play on Instagram a lot. I'm at Kathryn Morrison Coaching. And I also, for those of you who are maybe have an inkling of entrepreneurship in your bones, there's a podcast called Ascension Through Entrepreneurship, and you can check me out there.
Awesome. Oh, thank you, Kathryn. Thank you so much for being here today. This was super fun.
Welcome. It was great to catch up.
Yay.